Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Online Warriors podcast, almost into July. This is our pre-4th of July episode. So the big weekend's coming up. Get out there. PSA. Unless you're like a town or municipality, cool it with the fireworks. I'm coming in hot, blasting hot this week. If you aren't a municipal body, no fireworks allowed. I have a dog. Okay, that's where I'm coming from with this. Are you guys going to back me up on this, or are you going to sit there in silence?
I like fireworks, but in a condensed, specific amount of time. If you're just popping them off and it's not a holiday weekend, what are you doing?
Right. OW Nerdbomber coming in hot. I'm Illeagle 86. Techtic remaining silent. Clearly a firework boy.
I don't want to get set off, so I'm just going to remain silent.
Okay, I appreciate
your boy
that.
Techtic's the firework, really, in this scenario.
He's a firework. Show us what your color's worth, etc. Remember that song? That was a good song. I want to come in hot. I want to come in even hotter. Okay, so I came in with that. So for those that don't know, before the episode starts every week, we talk off the air. We just like have a conversation, just like how have you been, etc.
As friends do.
And I became privy to something that I believe needs to head on to Twitter as a Twitter poll. We did this last week with Bologna, I believe. We're doing it again this week. If you had to rank all of the food genres, the genres being like, Chinese food, Italian food, Mexican food, where would Italian food be? First, second, third, or fourth plus? Because look, I don't want to out anybody. There are people here who don't, I'm directly quoting now, Italian food is not that good. Was that what was said?
No,
I think
that was not what was said. I'm gonna step up and say I'm being misquoted. What was said was,
he's not being.
I rank my food as a function of if it's a special treat for me. Growing up Italian and learning how to prepare Italian cuisine very well myself, it is not a special treat because I can prepare it top notch myself very well, comparable to some of the best restaurants. The things that are special
lasagna has never not been a special treat for me. It's always good.
Okay, so you're saying it is good. The things that are special treats to me are the things that I challenge to recreate, and that is why it does not rank high, because it's not a super special treat. So it is delicious.
Where would you rank it?
Is it special treat?
Is it fourth plus?
I would
for
put
you?
it down at the fourth plus, yeah. But for that reason alone, not because of its flavor profile.
Nerdbomber fourth plus.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
I just prefer other foods. Like, don't get me wrong, Italian is fine. I like Italian food. I like me some Olive Garden. But if you ask me if I want to have,
never mind. Just keep
let me.
No, I said if you were gonna ask me if I want Olive Garden, or if I'd rather go to like Mexican food, or if I want to even go to like Texas de Brazil, which is semi on par with, I guess, the fanciness level of a good Italian place, I'm gonna choose something else.
Let me spice. First of all, so for me, it's probably number 2. I think Mexican is number 1. Let me shake it up for you a little bit and say that, in my opinion, pizza counts as Italian food. What happens then? Any movement from either of you?
I do like pizza, but it's so far from what the Italian origin is, the type of pizza that I like.
Yeah, pizza counting is like, it's debatable, and I'm aware of that, but I'm just, for the purposes of this discussion, if pizza were to count as Italian food, I guess.
But again, I've gotten good at recreating pizza. Like,
we get it. You're a good cook. I mean,
for me, the number 1 is Chinese food. I cannot for the life of me mimic that flavor. And yeah, I know a little bit of it has become Americanized, but even still, like, there's the authentic flavors, and there's things like soup dumplings that are just very, very challenging and take a lot of iterations to really master that I just simply cannot.
All right, so I will say your explanation makes me less angry at you. So when we first had this conversation, I wouldn't let you get a word in edgewise because I was aghast.
He was fuming.
I would say. I guess it makes sense. And we can leave it at that. I still think you should put the Twitter poll up, but we can leave it at that for now and say that we have a great and action-packed episode ahead. We're going to be talking about Disney Plus twice. Actually, 3 times. If you count my "What Are You Up To" update, we're going to be talking about Disney Plus, the rumored Disney Plus Star Wars series that is well, rumored. We're going to be talking about the Santa Claus series, which we got our first look at, and I have a lot of thoughts because I'm a Santa Claus stan. I'll say it. And then we're also going to be talking about One Up, which is a trailer for, well, the One Up trailer is a trailer for a movie called One Up.
I have to say this. Which is
coming to Amazon on July 15th.
I have to say this just because, things pop in my head. Because you said we're talking about Disney Plus multiple times, it made me get this idea. Do you guys think that Disney should have like a side educational app called Disney Plus Plus?
Yes.
Right?
They should put all their Nat Geo stuff over there. Because the Nat Geo stuff doesn't belong there.
It's a little
I love a good Nat Geo thing.
Plus Plus, come on now.
Well, that would just be for you, basically. I'm not sure anyone else would think of that, but there should probably be 2 apps. There's a lot of content. I'm with you. Let's talk about Disney Plus first, because again, we'll do the Disney Plus. I always do this. I call it the Disney Plus sandwich, but it's really the Amazon sandwich because the Disney Plus is the bread. If I had a nickel for every time I did that on this podcast, when we were making sandwiches, I'd have at least $1. But
we do make a lot of sandwiches. We should be called, instead of the Online Warriors podcast, we should be called like the Sandwich Shop or something like that.
Oh, that's good.
It's actually not. If anyone wants to steal this podcast idea, like basically pick 2 topics and like a meat and make your podcast the Sandwich Shop.
I want to talk about the Santa Claus. I want. Let's go Christmas in June here to start. First of all, I want to make a couple things clear. Thing 1, Tim Allen is not my favorite person. Thing 2, he is the best Santa Claus.
These are both facts.
In all of media, he is the best Santa Claus. The fact that they're making a Santa Claus show, okay. So I think Christmas shows, it's just weird. Like Christmas shows don't exist. So that's my first, like, I'm scared for this immediately because of that. Like, because of how long shows take to be shows, it doesn't temporally make a lot of sense. But that's neither here nor there. We got our first image for the Santa Claus special, which I believe it has a name, but I'm not positive. I'm scrolling to see if I can find what it's called. The name might be buried in here somewhere. I can't see immediately what it's called. I believe it's called the Santa Clauses. In any case, no Bernard. So for those who have seen the movies, first of all, have you guys seen the movies?
I have seen the movies, yeah. Only the first one, in my opinion, is really good, but continue.
Oh, the second one's good too. Actually, the second one, in certain ways, might be better.
No way.
The third one, I've never said all the way. Oh, the second one, the part where we could get into the weeds here if we really wanted to. The part where he gives the gifts to all the teachers, that's not much of a spoiler. That's just kind of like a generic Christmas thing, but it happens and it's an amazing scene. Never really watched the third one. I've been told it's not necessary for me to do that. But there's 2 major omissions from the cast photo here. One of them is Bernard, played originally by David Krumholtz. He's the head elf, guys.
Okay,
You've
but
seen the movie. Come on.
I'm not mad about this because it logically makes sense. So I get, yes, he is like a staple in the original movies, but I think the actor, the actor is like 40 or 50 at this point, and the whole point...
He's 44.
Exactly. So I was in the right range. But the elves are always supposed to be younger.
Forever
like,
young.
He was the oldest looking elf. All of the other elves looked like little kids. And it would look weird if all of a sudden you had this like 44-year-old, elf running around. You can explain it away, but like, come on.
You can write it in 5 minutes.
You can also de-ageify people in today's society.
De-ageifying looks creepy, and the Santa Claus already made a misstep when they did like weird plastic Tim Allen. No, thank you.
The puppet man. You wouldn't be able to de-age him for an entire show, but you could write that one out. I think the other major omission, Charlie. The son from the first,
that one,
a pretty
that
important
one
character.
I don't understand. Especially Charlie's interaction with Bernard. I thought their whole dynamic was just one of the things that I really enjoyed because at the time I related to Charlie. I grew up with Charlie. Charlie and I, we were buds. Where you at, bro? Where you at?
We named our dog after you, Charlie. Where are you?
It is pretty strange to me. I mean, because again, this guy. I don't remember who plays Charlie. I don't remember the kid's name. I read a Reddit AMA from him once where he like talked about stuff and like his experience working on the movie, and it was actually pretty interesting. I guarantee you ask that guy right now, do you want to be on this Disney Plus show? He's going to do it. What has he got going on? Like what What happened here is my main question.
I don't remember from the AMA, but I thought he left acting altogether, though. Like, I thought he purposefully left acting. Am I wrong here? Do you remember?
I think you're right. I think he's a musician now, but it's not the point. It's Disney Plus.
Just give the people what they want.
Give people what they want. Take the money that you're sure to get from it. That's kind of my overwhelming reaction to that, but...
Okay, so this begs the bigger question, though. This is still in the same vein. So say you're a child star, which he was, but say you personally are a child star on some TV show that was super big or a movie when you were a kid. Now you're like 30s, 40s, you've got a family, you have a different career, you didn't stay in acting. Are you beholden to the fans to basically come back and act again for the first time in potentially decades? Yes, you think yes?
Especially if you have a family. Like your own kids can look and go, look, that's my dad.
But like, what if you don't want to?
If you want to escape the child star vortex, you have to work for it. And by that, I mean, you have to do what Daniel Radcliffe has done.
Get weird.
And granted, he's still an actor, but yes, get weird. He's gotten weird, and he's done so many things that, like, to me, he has successfully distanced himself from Harry Potter. Like, I'll still watch Harry Potter, and it's obviously still him, and I'm like,
can I not be a child star and still get weird?
That's an option.
Yes.
That's an option, definitely.
Actually, I will say most of the Harry Potter stars, though, they did a really good job kind of distancing themselves. Like, I think Rupert Grint is the only one that would be like, okay, you're still Ron. But I know the kid who plays Draco, whose name I can't remember right off the bat.
Tom Felton.
Thank you. Like, he's done enough stuff. Like, he was in The Flash. And, like, yeah, he's still Draco, but I also now have, like, The Flash embedded in my mind. And obviously, Emma Watson has done so many things at this point.
She's got all kinds of stuff going on, yeah. They've all done very well for themselves. Going back to the Santa Claus, though, I want to talk about this clock in the background. First of all, let's talk about all the clocks, because they're like, obviously in a Christmas-themed kind of setup, but it's also like, there's clocks everywhere. Look at the wallpaper. It's clocks. They're pushing some theme on us here. I don't know what it is.
I feel like there's going to be like a weird time travel element here.
The clock on the wall that's an actual clock, that is amazing clock design. That is a 10 out of 10 clock I wanted in my house. For all I know, there's a word for this. It's a clock calendar. So the nice thing about clocks, let me condescend to our listeners about clocks for a second. There's 12 hours in a clock.
Whoa. Well, okay.
There's also 12 months in a year. So they made a month clock that also has days as the minute
I don't
hands.
think that the clock's going to be the theme. You have to think about it like this. They're in the North Pole, so they have to track to when December's coming. And then on top of that, there's time zones all over the world. I think that's just the regular North Pole and you're reading into it.
Ooh, no. I have a different theory. The clock is Tim Allen's Santa clock. Time is running out on him being Santa. Because, like, is he still Santa? Did we leave off in the last movie with him being Santa? Or did he, like, pass on the mantle?
Well, I didn't see the third one, but I assume he's still Santa.
Like, I think he's going to pass it on to Cal Penn. Which, can I just say, I do love Cal Penn. That takes me back to my Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle days. I love him.
I have very little Cal Penn exposure. He was an actor in Harold and Kumar, and then he worked for Obama for a while, and then he was not doing that. So I don't have a good grip on Cal Penn as a person. He's
done a lot of different things. Like, he has a wide span of roles. He too has been someone who's really kind of distanced himself from Harold and Kumar. Like,
I really hope he doesn't pass it on, because there's this, if you haven't seen this theory, look into it. There's this fantastic theory that the elves murdered the previous Santa and handpicked Tim Allen.
I've heard this.
And he orchestrated it.
Yeah.
And if Tim Allen's still around when the mantle gets passed on, that blows up the whole theory. So, in other words, guys, I really want Tim Allen to be murdered if that's the case.
But okay, so the thing about him, like, he's going to pass it on because otherwise there's no Santa. Like, it's very easy to back yourself into a corner with these Christmas things, movies and or shows. Christmas has to go on, you know? Don't let the spirit of Christmas die. That's the takeaway here. I don't know when this comes out. We don't have a release date yet. The Santa Clauses will catch up with Scott Calvin, original character, on the brink of his 65th birthday as he sets out to find a suitable replacement Santa while also preparing his family to leave the North Pole to return to normal life.
Actually, the theory still tracks.
Looking for...
Maybe the guy was like, didn't want to give it up, and they're like, well, if you're not going to give it up by choice, we're going to take it by force.
it's possible that that's what happened or will happen. We won't know until this show comes out, and it's coming out at question mark time. But be on the lookout for that. Let us know what you think at Online Warriors 1 is our main show account. At OW Illeagle 86 is my account. At OW Techtic and at OW Nerdbomber are these lovely people sitting with me here. Let us know what you think. Who is the best Santa? What is the best Christmas movie? Will the Santa Clauses be a good show? Let us know. Talk to us about that or anything else we're about to talk about. As we skate into our next topic, the 1-Up trailer. So, this is a movie coming to Amazon Prime Video on July 15th, 2022. If you are a member of the Jeff Bezos machine, this is free for you. Let me just start by saying that. There aren't a lot of shows and or movies that I am aware of that are focused predominantly on esports. There are even less that focus predominantly on the, unfortunately, I suspect, meager presence of female representation in esports. This movie aims to fix both of those things. Is that a fair statement from the trailer?
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah. So, okay. The premise of this movie is there's a girl at college who is on an esports team. She gets kicked off, I guess, because she did something bad. It wasn't even clear to me in the trailer what she would have done. She was kicked off, decided to form her own all-girls esports team. And
I don't think she was kicked off. I think she was just tired of the rhetoric of being...
The ostracization.
Yeah, like, oh, you're a chick, you don't know how to game. That kind of nonsense.
Right, which... To be clear, patently ridiculous.
To be clear, Nerdbomber is better than me at most shooters.
Damn straight.
Also better than me. So, yeah, at this point, we get into what I would characterize as a pitch perfect situation.
Thank you. Okay, so as I was watching this trailer, I was thinking to myself,
a lot of parallels.
Yeah, there is so much here that is basically, they're trying to do to esports what Pitch Perfect did for acapella. And granted, this is on a much smaller scale because it is just a Prime original, so it's going to be only on Prime. It's not going to hit theaters. Arguably, maybe it will get more eyes that way. I highly doubt it, though. But even so, one of the things that really struck me the most, obviously there's the boy versus girl team at the same school vying for, being number one. But also there was that, like, in the movie, Fat Amy and the guy that helped me with his name.
Adam Devine.
Yeah, I don't know the character's
Bumper.
name. Yeah, Bumper. Fat Amy and Bumper. That chemistry is basically like paralleled in, I don't even know the names of the characters in this new movie, but they definitely have their like Fat Amy and Bumper characters that are like weirdly being aggressively flirty, but like rivalry thing going on between them.
Right.
And that was very apparent and very Pitch Perfect-y to me.
Was she, again, we don't know the characters' names, but the character in this movie who I think quite literally was, someone told the writing staff, make a Fat Amy character that is Fat Amy but esports. That was very clearly the goal of this character. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know how I feel about the character of Fat Amy in Pitch Perfect to begin with. I mean, them copying it makes perfect commercial sense. Let me put it that way.
But it's too on the... Like, I feel like when you copy someone's homework, you got to be a little more subtle,
Yeah,
Agreed.
I feel like
Absolutely
they could have very easily pulled off the boy versus girl team concept. And yeah, you have that, like, the aspect of college shenaniganery, but to like copy the formula exactly felt a little off. I do think one of the things that they are pulling that's a little bit more original, but also kind of a copy of Video Game High School, is the idea though of having a coach. Because if I'm remembering in Pitch Perfect, I don't think they had a coach, right? They just kind of like taught themselves and
no coach.
Right. So I think that element is something new that they're going to add, but it also remains to be seen how involved Ruby Rose's coach character is going to be. They made it seem like she would be super involved, and to me, and I know I'm kind of stealing Techtic's thunder here, but that felt a little like Video Game High School, which if no one has watched that, please do, because that still freaking holds up. I love that show. It was a YouTube rocket jump show, and it was great. It was phenomenal. Basically, have you watched it, by the way?
I have not, actually.
I mean, now that we're older, obviously it's geared
Don't tell me to watch it, because if you tell me to watch it, I'll never watch it.
Okay, don't watch it then. Vehemently do not watch it, so you'll go and do the exact opposite of what I tell you. But as an older person, it's obviously geared towards people in school, but I just really appreciate it for what it says about like the potential of gaming and how mainstream it could be in the future. And especially when that came out, which I think was like the 2010s, 2014 era, like that was like gaming was not as big back then as it is now. And you can kind of see some of the things that they kind of predicted would happen in video game high school coming to fruition in real life, like with how big Fortnite got and how big those tournaments became for a while. Sorry, that was like an offshoot tangent of VGHS.
Well, and on that note, and granted, I'm sure this already exists and I could probably go find it, but I went into this, here's my experience. I was essentially told, or we talked about topics and for today's episode, and one of the topics was the trailer for this movie. And I said, I'm going to go watch this trailer. And I went in, literally searching it on YouTube, looking at the thumbnail, clicking the link. What I thought and hoped for was a documentary about women in esports, or even just esports in general, because I think it's fascinating. I think it's an under-known topic. And like the fact that it's burgeoning so strongly, I think more people need to know about that. I think a documentary would be a cool thing.
Put a pin in that for a second.
I'll put a pin in it.
I'll come back to it.
But in the meantime, one thing I like about this that is, I think, different than Pitch Perfect, there does not appear to be any sort of romantic element involved. And I think I like that.
Will bet you money that there is. It's gonna be like a
how much money?
Enemies to like frenemies to like boyfriend girlfriend.
I don't know. They made the boy team seem too douchey. Like, besides that Amy bumper potential for romance, I don't think the main female character would go for the dude who basically like was the reason she left the team.
It's not going to be with him, but there's going to be a romance.
No way.
Oh yeah.
I'll bet $1.
I'll raise the stakes. $2.
All right, $2.
$1 plus.
I will bet you $1 plus that there is no romantic element. The last thing I want to say about this before turning it over to you, Nerdbomber, to talk about esports documentaries, is, do you guys remember when we went to college and if your esports team didn't do well, you would lose your scholarship? What? Like, when we got to that point in the trailer where the guy was like, you'll lose your scholarship, I was like, boy, this movie jumped the shark before it started.
Hey, I
didn't like that.
You say that, but that is a real thing. You do know that, right? There are like scholarships for esports now. I feel like maybe I just blew your mind a little bit, but that is like a real thing.
It's why I need to watch an esports documentary. That's all I'm saying.
Like, I don't think
it felt like a plot device to me.
It's definitely it's much smaller than like Division I sports, and like you're not going to have the same programs. It's not comparable at all, but there are schools now that are offering scholarships for esports. So just so you know, that is a real thing.
There's hope, gamers. There was hope before, but there's especially hope now. You could go to college playing video games.
But there is...
Yeah, tell me about this documentary, or hopefully this documentary.
It's not a true documentary, but there is a new Paramount Plus series that is actually releasing episodes now as we speak. They're doing like weekly releases, so I won't be watching it until they all come out because that's just how I roll. But it's called Players, and it's a mockumentary sort of style show following a League of Legends team and like their preparation for winning a championship. And I've heard
I want a real one.
Well, yeah,
I want a real documentary.
I mean, I'm sure those are out there though. I haven't seen any, but I'm sure you can probably find one. But I've heard like it's pretty decent for what it is. So hey, who knows? I'll probably watch it. I do have Paramount Plus still because we still need to finish Halo. We never got around to finishing Halo. But I still have the membership, so I'm sure when this finishes releasing, we'll binge it in like a week because I think there's only like 8 to 10 episodes on the season. And I think they're relatively short. So I can let you know how they are.
There don't appear to be many esports documentaries. I did a quick Google, and most of these are like YouTube videos. Pretty much none of them are actual documentaries.
But I think this needs to happen first, and then that's just it, right? There isn't a lot of. There is, but there isn't, right? Our people, we all know about it, but like the vast population, I guess, is probably widely unaware of the programs and scholarships and the level of competitiveness that's involved in esports and the expansiveness beyond that.
Well, so what is the path though? So if you want to increase public awareness, assuming that's one of the goals of this movie, which maybe I'm not right away I'm wrong about that. But I would argue the better way is documentaries first.
But
Or
how
at
do you
least,
get
like,
how do you get
2020
interest
specials.
into the documentary without having a movie that's exciting and has quippy lines and relatable characters? You need that first.
I think you put it on television and people will watch it because there's people who still have cable TV. I don't know. It's an interesting question. I think there's a way to generate, especially if it's like a docu-series or a reality series, like on Netflix. Man, you better believe people are going to be watching that.
Well, I think there was, I want to say Red Bull did one called Against All Odds. It was supposed to be like a dream team sort of thing where they put a bunch of kids, well, I say kids because I think a lot of them were young, like teenagers, together who had never played. I don't remember what the game was.
Teenagers are kids.
Maybe it was like Dota or something. And they basically were underdogs and went on to win a championship. And they had basically Red Bull, I think, sponsored this team and the making of the documentary and just like documented the entire thing. Well, I mean, I guess it's redundant. That's what a documentary does. But I think that is out there somewhere, maybe? Question mark.
I'll need to do some media deep diving on my own time because I didn't even really know that I wanted this until I watched this trailer for something that was, not a documentary clearly and thought, I wish this was a documentary. In either case, One Up comes out on July 15th on Prime Video. Check that out. Check out the trailer for it. Let us know what you thought. Let us know who's going to win the $2 bet. That's, at this point, we're playing the ponies here on the Online Warriors podcast. Stakes are getting high officially, or at least higher than before. For now, we are going to take our weekly break. But before we do that, of course, I would be remiss if I did not shout out our fantastic Patreon producer, Mr. Stephen Keller. Stephen, take a bow. Take off your little knight hat with the visor thing on it, because if you take a bow, it might fall off and dent, and you don't want that. Stephen is a knight on our Patreon. He supports us at the highest of our 3 levels of support. As a result, he gets access to the monthly secret segment and vlog, of course. We just recorded a secret segment before this, wink, wink. He also gets, of course, input into the weekly games segment, the producer shout-out that I'm doing right now, and the occasional guest spot on the show. You want to be like Steven, you want to be a knight, you want to hold a sword. Be careful with it, though. You can also be a squire who still holds swords, but they kind of just hand them to other people. That's my understanding as to what squires do. That gets you access to the monthly secret segment and vlog. There's also a page. I don't know what a page does, but they get access to the monthly secret segment. That's what I do know. Information on any and all of those levels of support can be found at patreon.com/onlinewarriorspodcast. Go check us out there. Talk to us. Talk to Steven. Consider giving back to the show that you're listening to right now, helping us keep things rolling onward. Thanks again to Steven. We'll take a short break now to shout out a sponsor, and we will be back to talk about Disney Plus and Star Wars.
Hi, I'm Kevin DeCristofano.
And I'm Sean Flanagan.
And we are the Ninja Turtle Nerds, your weekly podcast covering the Ninja Turtle comic book series one issue at a time. Plus the video games, the cartoon show, the VHS tapes. If it's Ninja Turtles, we'll cover it. Ninja Turtle Nerds is available wherever you get your podcast.
It's that time again on the show where I take martial law into effect and I talk about the news topic at the same time as part of my What Are You Up To? So the news topic here.
No.
You heard me. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, of course, that's a game that happened. And it's getting a sequel, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, which we talked about the trailer for a couple weeks ago on this show, I think. Now the news is there is rumored to be, a spin-off TV series in development dedicated to Cal Kestis, the main character, the protagonist from those 2 games. Reportedly, Cameron Monaghan, who portrays Kestis in Fallen Order, and it looks like in Survivor, has signed on to play the character in the show, which I think is critically important. No production dates, no release dates, nothing of any sort like that. Really no firm confirmation that this is for sure happening. This is more or less a rumor, but we wanted to discuss this on the show, and I wanted to kind of couch this in the news that I finished Obi-Wan. Now, the reason I want to talk about that is because Obi-Wan takes place purportedly in the same time period that this show would take place in, and it also features the Inquisitors quite heavily, which I know feature at least somewhat heavily in Fallen Order, and kind of in this, again, time in Star Wars history. So, I guess, first of all, I'll talk about my thoughts on Obi-Wan after we talk about the actual news topic at hand here, but the Inquisitors, I think, are the critical piece of this puzzle. And I think they may even be the reason that this show is being discussed, because I think they're being teased and kind of we're getting a taste of them in Obi-Wan, and they may be looking to expand, that group of characters out into other shows, maybe even Andor and this show. So first of all, thoughts on a show featuring Cal Kestis?
So,
yay, nay, would you watch, would you not?
So this excites me, and the reason why is because one of the things for me that I struggled with when playing through Jedi Fallen Order was it felt to me almost every cutscene I would always go, man, this would be so much more engaging as a show as opposed to a game.
Well, it's just because you were bad at the game.
No, I know that sounds counterintuitive. Games are inherently more engaging, but sometimes you can just capture more of the moment in a show as opposed to, cutscene play, and you get better flow. And so to see them actually pulling the trigger on that really excites me because, one, he's a fantastic actor. Two, this is just ripe for the pickings. There's no work that needs to happen. They could just copy pasta and be successful.
I don't know if that's true.
I
immediately take issue with that because you run the risk then of people who have played the game being uninterested. If they've already seen this before, why are they going to watch it again?
Right. That's kind of what I was going to say. I think it depends heavily how they do this. So first of all, I do have to go back and say I disagree with you about the Inquisitors. I think maybe they'll bring them in, and obviously they're a big part in the game. I haven't watched Obi-Wan yet, but it sounds like they're a big part of Obi-Wan. So yeah, maybe
therein lies your problem. If you watch Obi-Wan, you'll agree with me.
Okay, but I don't think either of you finished, maybe Techtic did, finished Fallen Order. And I would argue that the highlight of the game is not so much the Inquisitors. Obviously, yeah, the dark side and Cal's battle against the dark side and evading them was a big part of the game. But I think almost more so than that was Cal unlocking his powers over time. And I think that's something that I don't know how they'll be able to do. And that's something the game pulled off very well because you got to play through the development of his powers and how he kind of unlocked memories and grew as a Jedi again. And I don't know how they'll do that without just rehashing the story, but they also have to establish the character for people who haven't played the game. So I'm a little concerned about that. But I think the main point of the game and what struck home for me was, discovering and unlocking clues of what was happening with the Jedis, trying to find out what happened, where future Jedi disciples were located, and figuring out what the plan was, but also the kind of team that was building around Cal Kestis. There were other characters, and yeah, a lot of the game was spent kind of alone traversing various planets and galaxies and finding clues and stuff. But also I think it was him learning not to be so much of a lone wolf and building a bit of a team. And I think the chemistry between teammates was the element that struck home for me, and I think a lot of other people, just because it was a well-built team. It was a team that was very believable. Their stories were very interesting, and that was what kept me coming back, trying to unlock the secrets of everybody's past and how they kind of fit into the story together, rather than just, fighting more Darth Vader bad guys.
So do you think this show is going to be a post-game show or a pre-memory loss show?
That's what I don't know.
To your point of how are they going to introduce him to people who haven't played, it seems to me that it's going to be a one-off run of a pre-memory loss show that gives the best of both worlds. It lets you see what you wanted to see in the games of what happened before, lets you introduce a new character, and this is important, it doesn't impede any future games, and you could just continue the game series without any worrying about conflict with the movie side or the TV show side of it.
Well, another thing that I feel like they might do, and this worries me a little bit too, they might use the show as the bridge between games, kind of like what we're seeing in Marvel. And I don't want to give spoilers, but obviously with one of the more recent Marvel movie releases, if you didn't watch one of the TV shows, you could still understand what was going on, but you definitely lost a big chunk of the plot and, the impetus for the characters' actions. And I think maybe they might do that. And like Techtic said, do a one-off sort of thing where it's between seasons. And I don't know if I like that either. I kind of hate
the
these
idea.
I hate the one-off capsule intermediary shows that they've been doing on D+, both with the MCU and with Star Wars. Like, give me something more like The Mandalorian where it can kind of stand on its own. Although they're kind of tying that in too, so I don't know.
So I will tell you right now, and kind of going back to my personal update in Obi-Wan should have been a movie. It should not have been a show. They didn't have the material to sustain a show, and it showed. Okay, so if you decide to watch Obi-Wan, and if you are a Star Wars fan, you will hate, and I mean hate, with a capital H, the first 2 episodes. You will be okay with episodes 3, 4, and 5. As in, they won't make you vomit, but they aren't good. Episode 6, which is about an hour long, is quite good. There are so many things that they could have done that they did wrong with Obi-Wan Kenobi, but the number one thing they should have done is made a movie. That was mostly just episode 6, and that's all it needed to be. So I do agree. I think these kind of one-off series are just a very strange idea. And you know, shows like Obi-Wan and shows like this potential Cal Kestis show, they're operating in this very weird set of bounds, right? Where they're not prequel series, they're not sequel series, they're in between. You know what the starting point is and you know what the ending point is in terms of the larger Star Wars galaxy. So how do you navigate that? You know, and like you said with the Fallen Order, with the game, and granted I got like 5 minutes into it, but that is so much more about, on a micro scale, you evolving this character and gaining these abilities. Anyone who's watching a Star Wars show on Disney Plus, chances are is going to want it to have some kind of connection with the outer universe. To me, that is again what makes the Inquisitors so important, because the Inquisitors, what they represent, in part in Obi-Wan, but also I think in general, what they are setting the Inquisitors up to be is, in this interim time between episodes 3 and 4 of Star Wars, you have your big baddie, you have Darth Vader. He cannot die. Like, obviously he cannot die. I would even go so far as to say nothing particularly bad can happen to him, because you know when episode 4 starts, he's Rudy Tooty Lightning Booty.
And similarly, Obi-Wan can't die either.
Correct. Which is one of the things that kind of hamstrings the show. The Inquisitors, not only can they die, they probably do. Like, that's I won't get into spoilers with Obi-Wan in case people watch it. I won't get into what happens with the Inquisitors, but like, they are bad guys who are, at least relatively speaking, expendable. And there are more than one of them, and they still pose a formidable threat to a character that is even as powerful as Obi-Wan.
Isn't that
Kenobi.
the best
So they are still
part
compelling
about introducing Cal into the universe? Because he can die, you can absolutely fall in love with this character. You can be rooting for him, and then bam, there goes your heartstrings. He dies.
Sure. I'm not saying I'm against this show. I'm just saying that it's Obi-Wan. If it says anything to me, it says that this is very challenging narrative territory. So I think if you're going to, you know, build a show around a character, building it around someone who is not a known quantity, someone like Cal Kestis, or someone like, I can't think of the guy's name. His name might be Andor, the main character in Andor, the Rogue One guy. Although that's another good example. You know what happens to him. So that's also not a very good example. But you need to use more unknown quantities in this time period. And Cal Kestis presents an opportunity for that, but I have my doubts on the heels of Obi-Wan as to how good it can be, and as to whether it should be a show or a movie, because these one-off seasons of shows, they're kind of weird. I think I'm coming to a point, you know, even with the better ones like, you know, WandaVision and Loki, where just make it a movie. You know, if you want to do something in that space, do it, but why does it have to be this 6-episode thing?
Yeah, that's my thing. Like,
I don't know.
I think it worked with WandaVision because it was a unique format, but a lot of the other shows, it just feels like it's prolonged and drawn out, and it could have been condensed. Yes, and it could have been a movie. Like, unless you have a unique concept like WandaVision, where every episode was kind of a different era and was doing something different, I just don't see the need. That said, though, one of the ones that I found was an exception and that I really liked was Hawkeye. For whatever reason, that one stuck with me, and I was able to stick through every episode. And in fact, I almost wanted more out of that, but that's because it felt more like a buddy comedy, and there wasn't this like, there was obviously like comic backstory that you kind of needed to know, but it also kind of felt like a a buddy cop sort of show, where every episode was just fun and it didn't have to have this like interconnected weight to it. Where I feel like that's where it drags and why it drags, because they're trying to tell a grandiose story over 6 hours and it doesn't need that much time. Whereas if it's just like a fun romp, you can drag it out because every episode can be kind of a unique set piece, a unique new fun action sequence.
This is what The Mandalorian is as well. And The Mandalorian continues to be, to me, this totally moonshot thing of did they do a Star Wars show pretty much exactly perfectly, and every show following should just try and do that. Obi-Wan was a bloated mess that just had an overabundance of wasted time, and there are a few reasons for that. But you could have made a 6-episode show about Obi-Wan Kenobi where each episode he did something different, much like The Mandalorian does, and oh my goodness, would it have been better? I can't stress enough that Obi-Wan was a disappointment for me. And I know I'm hijacking this news topic to say that, but it's true.
Is there any sort of background characters, non-canon characters, what have you, that you would want to see get their own show and get integrated into what is canon?
Dash Rendar. Do you know who Dash Rendar is?
I don't.
All right, I got you. Dash Rendar was a smuggler and mercenary who lived during the reign of the Galactic Empire. I'm reading directly off of Wikipedia, or Wikipedia, whatever they call it. This was the main character from the Shadows of the Empire video game on the Nintendo 64. For some context, I believe he was the person who had previously held the Kessel Run record before Han Solo did. Think Han Solo, basically. But a new Han Solo who has very many fewer connections to other characters and baggage weighing him down. Another person, general archetype of a character I would love to see.
Starkiller. Say Starkiller. Say it.
Nope. And I'm going to be very generic now. And for all I know, Starkiller fits into this category. I have no idea. A Grey Jedi.
Well, okay.
I want a Grey Jedi very badly.
Well, we're getting one. Isn't yeah.
Ahsoka maybe a Grey Jedi. I feel like it's unclear.
She is a Grey Jedi. Starkiller, if you don't know, is the main character you play
Force
as
Awakens guy. Yeah.
In the Force Unleashed. And yes, he works under Darth Vader, so there is some ties there. But I just say I want to follow, like, they tried to do it with Kylo Ren, but like he wasn't very, I don't know, he just wasn't very Sithy. I want someone full on bad mamma jamma. That's what I want.
Well, see, I want Star Wars Deadpool. I want a Jedi who he or she is still trying to do the right thing, but they'll cut somebody's head off and they won't even care. Like that to me, that's kind of like and it's a tough thing because Jedi are literally defined by this moral code and this sense of light side and dark side and all that. So it's a hard thing to pull off, and that's probably why it's never been done. But I want that. I think that would be so much more interesting than what they did even with Obi-Wan, who is one of my favorite characters in all of Star Wars canon. Cal Kestis. Maybe will be that. I have no idea. I don't have enough context. I got 5 minutes into the game, and yes, Nerdbomber, it was too hard for me. I will own that.
Easy mode.
I'll never do that. Never, ever, ever. But this one, again, rumored, no release date. Basically just a rumor at this point. Total vaporware. But be on the lookout and rejoice if you are a fan of Fallen Order. So continuing transition into what are you up to Wednesday, I guess I'll round out my update because that was, Obi-Wan was most of my update. But I also watched The Lost City, which I know you guys also recently watched. So I don't want to retread conversationally what you already said about it, but it was good. Daniel Radcliffe. I want to shout him out specifically because I'm a big fan of his. Again, his career metamorphosis has been phenomenal. Also Channing Tatum, who I think is one of the most underrated comic actors going right now.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Sandra Bullock, pretty good. But so the thing with Sandra Bullock,
I said this before.
The expectations are high. She can get it, certainly, but the expectations for her, I feel like I always have high expectations for her, and it's not that she doesn't meet them because she does, but that's not as interesting as like Daniel Radcliffe coming out of nowhere. That's just kind of my experience with him. But yeah, I liked it a lot. I hope that it was a one-off. Like I want it to just exist as it is and as it was. I don't know that I'm going to get that.
Yeah, I agree. No sequels necessary.
But I would hope not. But yeah, that's kind of my. Oh, I also had my bachelor party, and I'm still here. So mission accomplished.
So
question mark.
Are you still going to go through with it?
I'm still planning to go through with it. Thank you for asking. I was anticipating that question because I know I asked it to you last week. Yeah, full speed ahead, as they say. Why don't you keep us going here, Techtic? What do you got for us?
Okay, well, I celebrated with Illeagle. It was chill. I enjoyed razzing some of his family members on food, teaching them what for and such. The other thing was I supported our indie developers out there, and I purchased Elechead, and I played a little bit of it. And I gotta say,
it came out.
It came out, yeah.
I didn't know it came out.
Came out this past weekend, yeah. And it is not what I thought it was. So I thought it was going to be, and this isn't a critique. This is actually a positive. What I thought it was going to be was level by level. You just kind of like solve a puzzle and you move into the next level. And that's not what it is. It's way more seamless than that. It's basically a side-scrolling thing where you can go backwards, you can go forwards, and you're solving puzzles to thereby progress. And it is just chilly willy, and I loved it. Like I didn't play much of it because I had stuff to do. I'm a busy guy, but like real chill, real relaxing. It's totally my speed. So if you want something chill, it's $10. Support your indie developers and go ahead and give it a shot. The other thing that I did this past weekend was I floated. And I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but my goodness, when it feels like you got plans all the time, just taking a day and falling asleep in like the pool is just phenomenal. My arm is half red, half brown, and it's fine. It's fine.
Safety first, though. That ain't safe, man. Was Nerdbomber watching you?
I was in my own floaty. I have a sloth floaty, and I was reading a book.
Okay, yeah. So don't both be asleep, because that ain't safe.
I don't really burn. It just kind of tans.
Well, I'm not talking about burning. I'm talking you flip off that thing and then you're
awake.
You're drowning.
It's like 4
You might
feet.
just sleep. You might just sleep through it, man. I don't know. I don't know how deep a sleeper you are. I don't want to risk anything. I want to keep doing this podcast.
But yeah, so that's my plans. I'll kick it over to Nerdbomber.
So for me, I had a very busy weekend. I watched a lot of hockey. The Colorado Avalanche is my team. And guess what just happened? And I know this is also going to be our trivia topic. I'm going to blow this up. Sorry, Illeagle. I knew you wanted to keep it under wraps, but here we are. We won the Stanley Cup, man. So that was really exciting.
How dare you? How could you do that to me?
I'm a little sleepy because I stayed up and watched the game, and also, so on the East Coast, the game went to about 11, and then they did like the whole Stanley Cup presentation ceremony, and it's actually really nice. So the way that the NHL did it this year, because of the Olympic break, the season went a little bit longer into the summer than it normally does. But what that kind of afforded it, so first of all, this year is the first year that ESPN and ABC have had the TV rights to the NHL. So, it was on ABC, the Stanley Cup final was on ABC every other night, basically for the last week. And the NBA is over. I think golf is over. So the NHL kind of had its own little spotlight for the first time in a really long time, had a bunch of eyes on it. And I think it got its full, dues this past week. And they gave the awards presentation for, I think, 45 minutes, which is, I think, longer than the NFL gets, the NBA gets, and I think maybe the MLB gets. So hockey,
certainly more than the NFL gets. I know that.
So it was really cool to watch. The Avalanche haven't won the Stanley Cup since 2001. It was really neat seeing, Joe Sakic when they won in 2001. And when I was a kid, that was really into the Avalanche. Joe Sakic was the captain of that team and, hoisted the cup back then. He became the GM of this team and really put together, a really well meshed team. They just, all of the pieces seem to fit perfectly this year. And to see him hoist the Stanley Cup again after all this time back in Colorado, just right in the heartstrings, man. So that was a really fun and exciting night. A little sleepy because it was a late night. We record this on Mondays. The game was Sunday, but yeah, it was great. Way to go, Colorado. Other than that, though, I've just been doing a lot of reading in my spare time. Finished a decent number of books. One that I did kind of want to touch on is more of a Mexican, fairy tale thing, really focusing on this story. I don't want to call it a fairy tale because it's more set in like, I want to say like maybe the 50s, but the god of death is betrayed by his brother, and his bones are stored in this chest. And this girl who's kind of, I don't want to call it like a Cinderella story, but she's kind of like the shunned person in this family, and she basically does all the chores for her grandfather, and everybody kind of like poo-poos her, and she discovers this chest of bones that resurrects the god of death, and she has to help him basically reclaim his throne from the brother that betrayed him. And it was a really interesting read. I've been really into like stories of gods and stuff, especially like Greek and Roman mythology. There's been a ton of good like storytellings of, the mythological stories. That was a redundant sentence, but you know what I mean. So to get something from a different culture was really, really cool. This book was called The Gods of Jade and Shadow. And
I was about to ask you, I was like, you haven't said the title this entire time. I want to make sure people know what it's called.
And it was a really good read. If you're interested in like mythological tellings and stuff like that, definitely give this one a good read. But yeah, then also just doing a lot of like beachy read type stories. There's a book literally called Beach Read by Emily Henry that I read. And like I said, I popped my Kindle, which is waterproof, but I'm paranoid. I put it in one of those like, the extra waterproof baggy things that you're supposed to take kayaking. And then I sit in my sloth floaty and I read books. And this is all going on.
Beautiful weekend.
It's a great thing to do in the sunshine.
I do have one more update before we kick it over to our quiz. And that is Friday at 4:30 a.m. I got up and I looked at the sky, and you might have one day by the time this episode comes out to see this, but all of the planets will be aligned perfectly. When I saw them, it was the optimal day. It was aligned perfectly in a line with the moon. There were no stars out. So it was literally just focused on these planets. And it looked like something out of a science fiction movie. It was the coolest thing.
Yeah, so on Friday 4:30.
Yes.
Yeah, so I thought about doing that, and then I was 30, so I slept, and I don't regret it immediately, but maybe I'll can I catch it at a time that's not 4:30, or does it have to be 4:30?
You'd have to check what time it is now relative to the optimal viewing.
I'll look into it, but if it's 4:30, it might not be super likely. But good PSA. If it was not clear from her poetic update, Nerdbomber may have an advantage in the quiz today. I just want to throw that out there right away. Looking at our quiz records, Techtic 8 and 7, Nerdbomber 7 and 8, myself 8 and 9, Steven 1 and 1. So one of you will take a definitive lead today, dare I say. Oh, actually, no, that's not true. Nerdbomber might win, and then it would be like all tied up. We'd all have 8 wins. So the quiz today, as Nerdbomber mentioned, is about the Colorado Avalanche. I have 5 questions in front of me and a tiebreaker as needed. So we can dive right in. The Colorado Avalanche were originally founded as the Quebec Nordiques. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, but it doesn't seem that hard. As one of the charter franchises in the World Hockey Association. In what year did they join the NHL? And Nerdbomber, you will start because I feel like you have an advantage here.
I'm trying to think back to when they actually joined the NHL. I want to say it was maybe the 60s, but I might be too early. I'm not sure. I'm going to just say 1960.
1961.
Oh, come on.
Coming out with the +1 early did pay off for you. They joined in 1979. They were actually originally founded in the WHA as of 1972. And in 1979, the WHA and the NHL merged. Therefore, the Quebec Nordiques, I should say.
I gotta play dirty if I'm gonna win.
In 1979. He's playing dirty, folks. It's 1-0. So the follow-up question to that, naturally.
I will say, just to give Techtic a little bit of a, if he wins, he won't have such a big head. I'm a big Avalanche fan, but when it comes to like stats and numbers, there's too many different statistics. Like I give the PR teams for all of the different various sports teams a lot of credit because the stats and the numbers they're able to dig up, like they'll be like, on this game, like this is the 3rd game in history that Tom Brady ate a pizza on white bread.
Oh, I remember that.
Like 5 times before he threw 6 balls. And you're like, what is that stat?
It wasn't a pizza on white bread, though.
I don't know. I was just grasping.
It was an English
straws.
muffin pizza.
But like, you know what I mean? I give them a lot of credit for making stuff up.
Here's a stat for you. The Avalanche, well, so I will say the Colorado Avalanche, treat this question as a combination of the Avalanche and the Quebec Nordiques, because in most statistics, they're treated as the same team. They hold the league record for most consecutive division titles. How many did they win in a row? Techtic, over to you.
I want to say it was 5.
That's what I was going to say. I don't want to... I have to do the +1, though, because otherwise... Okay, I'll do 6. I feel like I get forced into using my +1.
So you both used your +1s to great effect. They have won 9 in a row. They did this from the 94-95 season to the 03-04 season. And that's still currently the record. So they were pretty good there for a minute. In what year, I should say, did they become the Colorado Avalanche?
Wasn't that the first question?
No, that was when the Quebec Nordiques joined the NHL.
And when was that?
70s.
I don't know. When was it?
I should know I got that one right.
I want to say they moved in the early 90s. I'm going to say 1991.
I think that's a little late. I'm going to say 1980.
Nerdbomber takes the lead. It was 1995, actually. So you were both a little bit on the early side. So they won 1 division title as the Nordiques in 94-95. And then in 95, they became the Avalanche and won 8 more titles in a row. So that brings us to question 4. I mentioned how many consecutive division titles they've had overall as a franchise. And now we're talking just about the Avalanche. How many finals appearances have they had?
Finals appearances?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Does this include this past one?
It does.
Are you sure?
I'm actually positive.
This was 3.
It's more than that because they've won the cup 3 times.
I meant 4.
No, you can't do that. You just said 3. I was on to my answer. I can't do the +1. I'm going to say 6, but I don't think it's that many. I guess I'm going to do 6, though.
Well, so Nerdbomber, you were correct. They have won 3 Stanley Cups, including just now.
Mm-hmm.
They have been to the Cup finals 3 times, and they've won each time they've gone. So Techtic got it right on the head. So
I had no chance there.
Correct. We are tied at 2 going into the final question. I want to go ahead and make this a text-in question. Since neither of you have +1s, I feel like there's not a whole lot of information to be gained, but just for fun, we're going to make this a text-in question. Bowen Byram is currently the youngest player on the roster of the Colorado Avalanche. How old is he? Text-in response. I have a response from Nerdbomber. We do have a winner. Bowen Byram was born June 13th of the year 2001.
2022. Oh.
Happy 21st birthday. Happy belated 21st birthday to Bowen Byram. As a result, Nerdbomber wins this one. She guessed 18. Techtic came in at 24. He thought the team was relatively old.
He's a rookie this year. That's why I went 18. I knew that was a little bit too young, but I didn't want to bust.
Who I was thinking of the defenseman.
He is also a defenseman, but you're thinking
he is a defenseman.
I'm thinking Makar.
But Bowen Byram, and this is now running commentary on my team, but for a rookie, he basically stepped up and played a top 4 role and was very, very effective and noticeable. And that kid's going to have a bright future.
So it is now official. Nerdbomber moves to 8-8. Techtic moves to 8-8, and I am at 8-9. So heading into the month of July,
winning.
That's correct. But I would say overall, headed into the month of July, it's basically like the previous 6 months have not happened. Steven's 1-1. I mean, we all are basically dead even. It's an exciting time for quiz heads. Let me just put it that way. People who like the quizzes, like the drama, they're going to get more of that in the second 6 months of the year 2022 as we roll on past 200 episodes and into hopefully 300 and 400 and however many more. A quick note before we end this show. Next week, I will be on vacation. I will not be here. You will get a dose of the lovebirds. I assume they're just going to be necking the whole time. So if you don't want that, find another podcast. But really don't.
For some wet noises.
We need your listenership. You'll have to sit through it. There's not much I can do. With that in mind, I will let Techtic take us out with a tech tip.
The thing about my tech tips is they're like elevators. They're always on another level.
Have a good week, everybody.